Good morning and welcome to Norcal APEX Accelerators online training for how to do business with the government. This is an introductory training that we put on monthly to help folks just like you who maybe know a little bit about government contracting, may have heard some whispers of it, and just really want some more information on how to contract with the government and how you can be successful with your business. My name is Amanda Anderson. I will be your host today. I'm the program coordinator for Norcal APEX Accelerator. And today I'm joined by our fantastic procurement specialist, Thomas Burns. But before I pass the presentation over to Thomas, I do want to tell you a little bit about APEX Accelerators and how we can help you with government contracting. So that really is our bread and butter. So APEX Accelerators, formerly known as Procurement Technical Assistance Centers, or PTACs, we're currently going through a name change. We're a government-funded program that is meant to solely help businesses like yours, whether you're a small business, a large business, and we want to help you with government contracting. Anything from getting all of your registrations and certifications to performance and compliance on contracts once you win them. Now, this program is a nationwide program, and we have over 96 APEX Accelerator Centers across this nation. So even if you may not be from our Northern California service area, you can absolutely connect with your local APEX Accelerator and receive all of the assistance that we could possibly give you. And a key thing about all of our services, all 96 centers offer this assistance to you for absolutely no cost. That's part of why we are funded from the government. They want to do business with you. They know it can be difficult, and so they fund us to help you do business with them. So Norcal APEX Accelerator specifically, we service the Northern California coast and a little bit of the northern interior in counties. So if you are within this service area, you are in the right place for all of these awesome services that we can offer you, including our one-on-one counseling services when you can meet one-on-one over Zoom or possibly in person. We are working towards that. You can meet with one of our fantastic procurement specialists, and they've been in the procurement space for years, and they'll be able to walk you through almost anything that you can think of you would have trouble with in government contracting, from those initial registrations and certifications to even helping with figuring out who you would be selling your products or service to, what agencies are buying what you're selling. That market research is huge and can actually inform our second service, which is our custom bid matching. Now, our custom bid matching is a program that we pay for, but offer to our clients for absolutely no cost. And this service scrapes the entire internet and all of the various procurement sites, from federal agencies to state agencies to local and community agencies. And you'll be able to sit down with your counselor and figure out, well, what you're interested in selling and who you're interested in selling it to, and where. So location is also playing a part, where you're willing to perform this work or service or ship this product. And our custom bid match service will take those keywords, take that information that you figured out with your counselor, and it'll curate an email with bids or solicitations that they'll send directly to your email. And you'll be able to review all of these bids also with your counselor. I'd highly recommend that. And figure out which ones are really worth you putting time and effort to submit a proposal for, which is a whole other kit and caboodle in itself. Another fantastic and our final main resource that we offer to you at no cost is all of these trainings and the various resources we have on our website. So this one can be used whether you're a client of ours or across the nation. We do have a lot of folks who enjoy our webinars, and we always welcome anyone from anywhere. They are absolutely free, provided at no cost, and we do put on quite a few webinars throughout the year. And we are also getting back to in-person workshops. So if you are in our service area, keep an eye out on us and on our newsletter and on our social medias, and you may be seeing an in-person workshop close to you. I cannot recommend our trainings and resources enough. Our website is a massive resource with a bunch of great information for government contracting. So if you haven't checked that out, I highly recommend that as well. And as a quick note, you'll see on the slides that our website, as well as a website to find your local APEX Accelerator, if you're not within our service area, are linked. And you will be getting the slide deck as well as the recording with all of the links active, so you'll have access to this after the webinar. And so some of the items that we can help you with, as well as any other APEX accelerators can help you with. Like I said, SAM registration is a big one. That's a very large hurdle to get into federal contracting that we often help with. But making sure that your business is certified with all of the certifications that you would be eligible for. That is a huge one to becoming successful in the government contracting space. Helping you craft a capability statement or doing market research, or possibly connecting you with a prime contractor. So maybe you want to do a small piece of a contract and become a subcontractor, which is also a fantastic way to really break into the contracting space. So if you're looking to do government contracting, we can help you from beginning to end. And again, it is at absolutely no cost. And I do want to leave with one other note. We did just recently redesign our website. So if you are familiar with us, have been to a couple of our trainings or events, our website may look a bit different, and that's completely okay. It'll look a little something like this. We do have our new logo in the top right corner, as well as this banner at the top and that big red Apply Now button. As long as you're seeing all three of those things, you're definitely in the right place. And you can get so many different resources on here, as well as sign up for our services if you're within our service area. So with that, I will go ahead and pass it over to Thomas.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Amanda. I really appreciate your help. Hello, everybody. My name is Thomas Burns, procurement specialist with Norcal APEX Accelerators. Before I move forward, just wanted to quickly do this disclosure. The government contracting space does change on a very quick basis sometimes, and we do our best to make sure that the information we're providing you today is 100% accurate and up to date, but at the same time, things can change overnight sometimes. So thank you. So next slide. This is our agenda, and this is what I'm going to be covering today. What exactly is government contracting and all of that, what that really means, how to determine if you're selling to the government is right for you. I think that's a really good topic for this agenda, because for those who are really just looking for information, we want to make sure you know this is either right for you or not right for you. If it is, how to get started. And then marketing to the government is a really huge piece because it's so broad, it's so competitive. So being able to understand what it takes to market to the government and how that might be different in many ways to the public sector or the private sector is really a good idea here. And then, of course, where to find bid opportunities, and then the steps to ultimate success. Next slide, please. All right, so what is government contracting? The way I like to explain it is any organization or entity that is utilizing our tax dollars for the public is a government contracting arena. So you have, of course, the federal government, you have all of the states within the United States, then you have, of course, the counties, the cities, but you also have the school districts, you have the universities that are funded by usually the state, and you also have transportation agencies, right? Your city's bus company, or here in the Bay Area, we've got what's called WETA, Water Emergency Transportation Agency. And there are many different vehicles and systems in place where there are opportunities. Of course, the airports, they all receive funding, from either your local or federal governments. So all of that is opportunities when we talk about government contracting. Next slide, please. Okay, so I like this slide. This is a quick, really good overview to understand where contracting is huge and where it's almost non-existent. So on the left side, this is where we're talking about, of course, construction, right? Public works and construction, keeping the roads going, keeping the bridges up, the dams, all of these huge major projects that we rely on. That is the biggest portion of government contracting. But you also have, of course, professional services, attorneys, accounting, marketing, sales, anything related to training. That's all in that big professional services. The other ones are pretty self-explanatory, IT and medical, transportation, and of course, defense. It's not the complete list, but that is a huge, good overview of where the primary funding goes when it comes to government contracting. And then, of course, on the right side, these are areas where it's almost non-existent. And you have to understand, the government is supposed to be purchasing things at the lowest possible cost to get the job done. So they don't buy things on a retail level. Everything is wholesale or at the best price. Next slide. And we like this slide because it really highlights what is possible within just one small agency. So this is one state prison here in California. And I don't even think this is an exhaustive list, but this is a pretty good list of all the different products and services that they purchase, whether it's on a monthly or annual basis, right? And so if you see your product or service represented, then yes, you have an opportunity to do business with the government. Amanda, are there any questions to this point?
Yeah, we did have one question come through about subcontracting and networking. So
Okay.
we've gone over a very
I
broad
will
overview.
actually get to those questions when we get to certain sections of the webinar. So let's keep going. Okay, so dealing with subcontracting, this is what this slide really focuses on. As I was mentioning before, like the defense, even with the transportation, medical, and of course with public works and construction, most of the time, the projects that come out from the government, whether it's the federal government, state, cities, or counties, they're normally fairly large, meaning if they need road work done, if they're building or replacing a highway, or if they're doing a bridge repair, it's extensive. There's all kind of parts to that job. And the government's going to give that contract to one company, and that is called a prime. And then from there, the government tells that prime, okay, we want you to sub out 30%. 20%, 10%, whatever percentage they dictate to that prime. And then the prime's job is to find subcontracts to do that, but the government doesn't tell the prime who to hire. It doesn't tell the prime what kind of work to sub. It's up to the prime to do that. Quick example is, well, I said the bridge, right? And so there's hauling away material, there's bringing in material, there's design from an architectural standpoint, there is maybe manufacturing of steel to replace it, there's wiring, there's cabling, there's all these different components. The prime can choose what they want to sub out. And having those relationships with those prime contractors before they win the bid is the key to having some success in the subcontracting realm. Did I answer the question that the participant had regarding subcontracting?
A little bit. It was
Okay.
very much, how can they get in contact with prime contractors? Like, how do you start that relationship?
Normally, it's by doing a really good deep dive on their website, right? So there are many different titles that might be used, but one of the ones that I see the most is a supplier diversity manager. That normally will let you know that that prime contractor is advertising and has actually put money into hiring an individual whose job is to work with supplier diversity or to work with suppliers. So that would be one title to look for. But yeah, doing a really good deep dive into the prime contractor's website is the first place to look.
Perfect.
Next slide. Okay, so recipe for success. When we look at this slide and when we look at all the things that we have listed here, I want to say it this way. It's not a mandatory requirement, but at the same time, it is a recipe for success. If you skip these, so let's look at the business plan that includes government contracting. Let's say you don't have a business plan, or let's say you have a business plan, but it doesn't include government contracting. Does that mean you can't start? It doesn't mean you cannot start, but it means you will have, you're missing something. You will be missing something. For example, like having an established business, yes, you can't go anywhere with the proper business license and all of those things to get started. Also, financial stability, because the government pays after the work is done, whereas in the private sector that might not be the case in certain situations, but within the government space, that's 99% of the time that is the case. You do the work, you invoice, you wait, and you get paid. So can you survive and pay your own bills? And if you've got employees, can you pay them while you wait on the government to pay you? It is a challenge, but that is one of the requirements, being able to have that financial stability when you get started. The one that really gets people is the past performance. So I get this a lot from my clients. I've done business. I've been in business for little less than a year, and I haven't made huge sales with any large companies, but I've got some work with a few mom and pop stores, or whatever your business is, right? But I haven't done anything with government yet. Does this mean that I have no chance of success within the government contracting space? Now, I'm never going to say that you have no chance, of course. There's always opportunities and there's always exceptions. But for the most part, generally speaking, the government is what we would call risk adverse, meaning they don't like taking chances on a brand new company, or they don't like taking chances on a firm or a company with almost no history of prior sales. It's so much easier for them to wait and find a company with history, with past performance, and they'll rather hire them. Now, saying all that, that doesn't mean, again, there's always exceptions. There's always cases that you could point to, right? But for the most part, having that past performance is really important and a key to having success with government contracting. Similarly, market research. Because the government contracting space is so huge, where do you start? Should you be focusing on the federal government? Should you be focusing on states? Should you be focusing on just universities or school districts? And you don't have an answer to this question until you do some market research. And then finally, having a really good website that has got a focus on at least letting the government know that you want to do business with them. They will check out your website. They will review you before they do business with you. Any questions, or can we just go to the next slide?
Yeah, we did have a couple. Leanne was wondering, typically, how long would they be waiting for payment after a contract?
The standard is 30 to 45 days, but it can go up to 90. And there's another caveat to that. Let's say you submit your invoice on the 1st of June, but you made a mistake on your invoice. There was some small error. The government can just say, hey, you made an error, we're sending this back, fix it, and we'll pay you. That could add another 30 days to the delay. So, and it really does depend on the type of work and the agency you're doing business with, right? So a military base and how they operate could be vastly different than a UC Davis or a school district. It's all government, but the levels of government are so different, and how they operate could be vastly different. So take it from what I understand. That's why market research is really important. You know, if you really want to focus on military bases as an example, how do they operate? How do they pay? What's their process? And then make a decision if you want to focus on military, or should you look for another avenue? Next slide, or another question?
We actually have quite a couple questions.
Okay.
Fantastic questions, all of them, honestly. We'll go ahead and talk some more about financials since we're already on that topic.
Okay.
We do have a question. Do you think that there are opportunities for minorities that may not have that financial stability?
No. In
No?
a word. In a word,
Okay.
no. They all pretty much have a system of, you do the work, you wait, you send in your invoice, and then you get paid.
Yeah.
Having a certification, whether it's a woman-owned, minority-owned, or hub zone, or local small business certification, doesn't change how they pay.
Mm-hmm.
It gives you greater access to maybe the bid process or set aside contracts, but in terms of payment, they all operate the same.
Yeah. And I will add, if you don't have that financial stability right now, we do have other resource partners, particularly the Small Business Development Center, which is very similar to us in the way that we are funded and kind of operate. But they work with businesses on a general business level scale. So they can help with anything from like HR processes to payroll to helping you get maybe some loans or some grants.
And
to help
business and
stabilize
marketing,
that.
stuff like that. Yes, yes.
Yeah, so they would be a great resource if you're not quite ready for contracting. They can help you get to that point. And then we'll go ahead and, if we can, circle back to subcontracting really quick. We do have a couple questions with folks who want to know, where can they find out who the prime contractors are? So how do you get like a list of who the prime contractors are for an agency?
Let me answer that further in when I talk about market research.
Perfect. So we'll go ahead and move on then.
Okay, perfect. All right, how to get started. So you've already started, right? You're at this webinar, you're getting introduced to APEX Accelerators. So that's the first thing. Second is identifying your target agencies. Again, who should you do business with? You cannot, well, I won't say it that way. Let me say it this way. Based on your size of your business and the manpower that's available to you, how much can you afford to actually do business? A good example is I've got a lot of clients that are here in the Bay Area. They're unable to go after contracts in Tennessee, in Washington, D.C., or even in LA, and their territory is the Bay Area. So they're focusing on agencies that are just in the Bay Area versus other clients I have that are, no, I want to do business all over the United States. And in fact, if I can work with military installations throughout the world, I have the capability to do so. So depending on your company, what is the scope of your territory and your target? And then your NAICS codes and UNSPSC codes. I keep forgetting the acronym, but it's something about United Nations and then SPSC. Here in California, the only agency that I'm aware of that really utilizes the UNSPSC codes is the state of California. All of the federal government uses NAICS codes. A lot of the cities and counties, transportation agencies, they also utilize the NAICS codes. And these are codes that make it easy for the government to identify industries, products, and services. It's a way to easily give a title and a number to an industry. Electrical has a NAICS code, construction, and then they break it down from there, right? So it's a cool way to really figure out where you fall and what they purchase. Excuse me. And then registering on Cali Procure, that is the California state's official website for businesses that want to do business with the state of California. You sign up as a vendor, and then from there, if you qualify for certifications, you can get the certifications. In California, there are only two. You have the SB, small business, and the DVBE through Cali Procure. There's another one, and I'll get to that as we later on in the webinar. And then registering on SAM, if you want to do business with any portion of the federal government, you have to be in SAM. And along with SAM is the dynamic small business search. So if I'm a federal contracting officer and I'm looking for small businesses to do certain types of work, and I want a list of them, I'm going to utilize the dynamic small business database, which is connected to SAM. But you can go in there and make your profile even better by doing the capability narrative, keywords, and past performance. And then the other necessary item is a capability statement. This is basically a 1 to 2 page document that all governments have come to accept and appreciate. It's a document that quickly tells the contracting officer or reader exactly who you are, what you do, and why they should care about your business, right? And we'll go into more of that because we do have examples of the capability statement later on. And then making your website government friendly. Next slide. All right, size and socioeconomic certification. This is something that everybody has a lot of questions about, so hopefully we can get the bulk of them answered here. As I said, in California, there are basically 2 clear certifications. Now, you see three. One is for public works. So there's a small business certification, which covers all of the different products and services. But then for public works or construction, they created another one. And then if you are a disabled veteran, then that's the DVBE certification. In the federal government, this is the list. And it's actually not an exhaustive list because I'm missing Indian on here, but you have small business, small disadvantaged business, or SDB. It's a little bit of a, but what that means is when you register your business in SAM, and when you answer the questions that ask about, are you a small business or are you a minority business? If those answers are yes, then they will basically what's called self-certify. They take your word that you've answered these questions and they're true. And so you are automatically given a small business certification. It's called a self-certifying small business certification. That's what that is. All of these others you see, women-owned, veteran, historical, HubZone, 8A, and the DBE, you have to apply for them. And through a lengthy application process. Sometimes it could be just a couple of months, but we're talking about the federal government, so expect 6 to, I would love to say it happens no later than 6 months, but there are situations where it could take a little longer. But these certifications are very helpful from the standpoint of the federal. Let's talk about the federal government real quick. They do what's called set-asides. So an agency will say, our goal, we've got a budget of $100 million. And our goal is to make sure that 30% of our budget, or $30 million, is spent exclusively with these certified small businesses. One of the ways they do that is by creating a set-aside contract. So if they have a need for accounting services, they'll say, we're going to create a set-aside for this accounting contract that's worth $200,000, and we're going to pick a certification. So they say, this will be just for women-owned businesses. That's an example of how your certification can help you. Any questions, or should we go to the next slide?
Yeah, we did have a couple certification questions come in. Shivani asked, is HubZone similar to the 8A certification, or what's kind of the differences in those?
The difference between HubZone and 8A. So HubZone is based on where you are located, right? Based on your zip code, and the government's making a HubZone category. Another way to say it is the government has decided there are certain areas within the United States that have been economically depressed for a variety of different reasons. It could be a rural area, or it could be an urban area that it's depressed because businesses have left or things have happened. So there are these historically areas within the United States that have had to suffer through economic depressions. Those are created and they call them hub zones. So if your business is in one of those areas, you can be receiving a certification, and then federal agencies will set aside contracts just for hub zone businesses. The 8A is actually a program. It's a 9-year program that was originally designed for Black-owned businesses, but it has been expanded to encompass minority businesses. So if you are a minority and you have a business and you've been doing business with the government, so this is one where you have to have been doing business with the government for about a year, then you can apply for this program. And the ultimate goal of this program is to take you from a small business to a large firm. So within that 9-year program, the Small Business Administration, that's the agency that manages this, they assign you a counselor, a manager, and they provide training, and they do what they can to help you win contracts to the point where after the 9-year program, you should be at a level that you are not a small business anymore. That's the ultimate goal.
Yeah.
So. Those are the two clear differences.
Fantastic. And since we're talking about the AA certification and it's a
Mhm.
9-year program, are you able to work on contracts during that 9-year program, or do you have to go through the program and then start working on
Oh, I'm sorry
contracts?
if I didn't say that correctly. Yeah,
Oh,
no. Throughout the 9-year program, the whole goal is to win contracts from year one all the way through year 9, so that by the end of 9 years, when you phase out of it, you are a large business, meaning you have generated that much revenue that you can't be considered a small business anymore.
fantastic. And then we did have one more certification question about the small business certification. Now, I'm not too keen on which are self-certify or which need a formal application, but we do have links on our slides for both the state of California certifications and the federal certifications. Could you, Thomas, delineate which ones will be more of a self-certify and
There's
which
only
will
one.
actually,
Yeah,
okay.
just the where it says United States Federal, just that first bullet point.
Yeah. And so
So
those
that's the
links,
one that is a self-certifying certification. So when you do your SAM registration, there's a section in the SAM registration that asks certain questions, and that if you answer those questions yes, then you become a self-certified small business.
yeah.
But
So there's
everything
not,
else requires an application. Everything you see here, other than that one.
fantastic. So yeah, Kino out in the audience, there's no link to apply, but as you get into contracting, you will be able to self-certify as a small business.
Well, when you go to sam.gov.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's only
Perfect.
only the federal has that.
Awesome. That's good clarification. And with that, we can go ahead and move on.
Yeah, yeah, excellent. Okay, so here's where I think the majority of people coming into government contracting, in my opinion, should start. I really think before you tackle the federal market space, I think it's important to look locally first. Um, I really believe getting your feet wet and cutting your teeth and really just understanding the marketplace, whether it's on a financial level or just understanding the marketing and what it's going to take to win a contract is important if you start on a local level. Here in the Northern California, we have dozens of universities. There are hundreds of school districts. There are, I want to say, 30 different transportation agencies. And of course, all of the cities and counties. There's so much opportunity just within Northern California. Now, if you're from other areas, look at that and just try to understand how much opportunity is within your 100-mile radius or 200-mile radius of actually where you are located. And I just think it's a good piece of advice to start locally. Now, most cities, I'll say it this way, especially smaller cities, probably don't have what they call, on your screen, you see local business enterprise. What that means is if you are located in a city, does that city offer a certification program just for local businesses? So, here in San Francisco, they have an LBE program. And what they do is if you're here, then they want to give you a preference. It doesn't mean they're going to do business with just residents of San Francisco, of course, but they give you a preference. And so if you and somebody from Connecticut are bidding on that same contract and you are $1,000 higher than the company from Connecticut, that local business preference kicks in and they'll award it to you, even though you're a little bit higher than the firm out of Connecticut. That's just a rough example of how that works. I just want to really highlight that this is a great way to get started. Next slide. Okay, so we mentioned capability statement before. Here is where we really go into what is it, what does it look like, and what's on a capability statement. So as it says, it really is a resume for your business, not for you, but for your company. Now, within that, you have, these are the core things that they're looking for. You know, your a paragraph that really describes who you are and why they should care. What are your core competencies, which means what do you sell to the government? What do you want to sell to the government? What are your products and services that you're selling? What makes you different? What makes you stand out from the competition? Who are your current key clients? Or do you have past performance? And if so, give me some details about that. Give me something about your bio. What are your codes and certifications if you have any? Of course, contact information, website, and photos. Now let's go to the next slide and we can show you an example that we share with our clients. So as you said, it's 2 pages, basically front and back. And while there are no images, you know, here, the point is you want images that highlight your products, your service, and your company. See how it's laid out? It's laid out in a very straight kind of left-right format. So me as a contracting officer, you know, if I'm a contracting officer, I want to know quickly, what are your codes? Do you have any certifications? Your company snapshot. When did you get started? Do you have an EIN number? Do you have a cage code or DUNS or, you know, all the details that I care about are right here, clearly spelled out. That is a capability statement, and it's a document that they want to see when you first start marketing to them. Any questions, or should we just move to the next slide?
Not about the capability statement,
okay.
So we can move on.
Okay, thank you. All right, here's another really good piece of information about making your company and your business situated so that government recognizes you. Having a website where at least one tab is directed towards government, you know, and so you got that government tab, and within that tab, the same information that's on your capability statement is also listed prominently on that webpage. Let's go to the next slide because we have a couple examples that kind of highlight this. So here's an example. So they have a government contracting page, and then they spell out their overview, current clients, and you know, couldn't show you the whole page, but if you were to scroll down, you would see they talk about their next codes, their certifications, their past performance. Next slide. Oh, see, there you go. So they even have a link that allows the reader to download their capability statement. And another example is, this is a company that's really focused on federal. So they're really focused on federal, and they're making that very clear by even including the logos of the different federal agencies that they've done business with, along with their next codes. If you have any questions about GSA, that means General Services Administration, and it's a federal department that helps manage the purchasing of products and services by contracting officers and managers within the federal government space. Next slide, please. All right. So my favorite area, marketing to the government. They don't call you. You've got to reach out to them. You've got to do all of the legwork to let them know you exist, and then let them know why they should care that you exist, right? And so marketing to the government takes time. It takes time, it takes energy. It is a challenge. I'm the first one to admit that, but it's worth the effort in the long run. It really is. Because just like in any arena, when it comes to business, relationships are always key. Building relationships with the decision makers and individuals that can help your business is always very important. And that holds true within the government space. Now, how do you do that? How do you build relationships? How do you network with them? How do you get them to want to do business with you? Here are some overarching ideas that we've listed. Establishing relationships can happen at expos, matchmaker events, conferences. In fact, because of the pandemic and how everybody's had to adapt and do much more webinars, whether it's the state of California, larger cities, transportation agencies, of course, the federal government and larger universities, they all do webinars on how to do business with us. You just have to look for them, right? And those are a quick, easy way to learn about that agency or that department, get some contact information, and then follow up. Participating in trainings similar to what we're doing here, but we're talking more about engaging with those agencies if they have any kind of training that's related to how to do business with them, participate in them. Next is social media. And this was one that I have been utilizing for almost 20 years. I've been on LinkedIn in one form or another because I started off as an entrepreneur, right? I've never worked in government. I was an entrepreneur going after government contracts and businesses of all types. And LinkedIn has always been a key tool for me. But in the last few years, LinkedIn has been a powerful tool for government. I'm not going to say every single agency, but for the most part, most government agencies have a LinkedIn profile, including the employees. That would include contracting officers. That would include managers. That would include estimators, supplier diversity specialists, or supplier diversity advocates, or small business specialists. All of these different titles I've been throwing out, they're all individuals that have the ability to help you navigate and do business with them. And they're all on LinkedIn. And so learning who they are, reaching out to them, making connections through LinkedIn, it can be another powerful way to market to the government. And so I mentioned small business advocate and small business specialist. Those are the same individuals, but just different titles because they're from different areas. A small business advocate is ideally, when I'm talking about that, I'm talking about the state of California. That's their title, small business advocate. And they are the middleman between the contracting officer and the small business trying to do business with that department or agency. The small business specialist or representative is that same role, but on the federal side. So every federal agency has small business representatives, or another title is small business specialist. And then again, the federal government marketplace, they use the dynamic small business search. So updating that and making it as powerful as you can is a good way to also get noticed within the government. Any questions on this area? Because it is kind of important. So I just wanted to make sure. If not, we can move on.
We didn't have any questions. We did have one question that wanted to get a little bit more in depth to how to navigate the dynamic small business search.
Okay.
So I let them know they could reach out to their local center and their counselor could walk them through it and help them kind of figure that out.
Right, because it's like there's a hidden link. It used to be very easy, very prominent, but it's a hidden link. Government.
Yeah.
Government. That's the best way I could say it. Things are not always easy, but we are here to help you with stuff like that. Okay.
Of course.
So where to find bid opportunities? This is another huge initial roadblock for organizations and businesses going after government contracting. How do they find these bids? How do you find them early enough so that you have an opportunity to bid on them? Because the window can be kind of short, right? Sometimes the window's 10 days, other times it could be 30 days. But so these are links that take you, right? So you can, because Amanda, we're going to provide this whole webinar to them. Okay, so within these links, they will take you directly to the pages where you can look at different contracting or bid opportunities. But I will make a quick comment about acquisition.gov. If you have interest in the federal government market space, and I remember there was a question that somebody was asking about, how do I find prime firms? So here's where I can answer that. There's one website that's not listed here. It's called usaspending.gov. That is a website that, again, is paid for, managed, and operated by our federal government. And the goal of usaspending.gov is to provide a database that you can access to look at all of the past purchases based off of keywords, based off of NAICS codes, based off of location. So quick example, you're a plumber, and you're looking for subcontracting opportunities with general contractors or construction firms. You want to know how many construction firms out there either had a plumbing aspect of their job that they may or may not have outsourced in California over the last 3 years with the federal government. You can use USA Spending and it will tell you, it will give you a list, right? You can put in a keyword of plumbing and you can say California and you can put in the NAICS code, and any contract that had that NAICS code that had plumbing anywhere within a description of the contract will show up. And if the jobs were $1 million or more, it's going to show you who the prime is, who won the contract, and that is a way to develop a list of primes for the product or service you're trying to do business with. Acquisition.gov is another government-operated site that allows you to figure out what are they going to be buying in the next year? What is the DoD going to be buying? What is the Department of Energy going to be buying in the next year? How much, and who are the contracting officers responsible for that? All of that will be available at acquisition.gov. And then finally, our own bid match service. It's a free service. We talk about your NAICS code, we talk about your keywords, and we can put all that into the system, and you will receive an email on almost a weekly basis with available bid opportunities for you. Next slide, unless we have questions.
We don't,
okay.
And that actually answered a lot of these subcontracting questions very
perfect,
well.
Perfect. Okay, so here are the 10 steps to success. So yes, so this was I'm glad you guys attended this webinar because it really helps you with a quick overview, right? Having the ability to have help. What the government has done in this 20-something year experiment by providing funding to organizations like Norcal PTAC, and there's like Amanda said, there's 96 or 97 throughout the United States. We help you to save time and money on questions that might take you a lot longer to get answers to. That's one really important thing. Second is making sure you understand where you should focus your attention. Should it be in the federal government market space? Should it be local? If it is local, where local? Understanding, doing the initial marketing research before you just jump out there is really important. Once you do that, you have to take care of your capability statement, take care of your website, start the process of building those relationships that are going to be receptive to helping you advance your company into the government market space, regardless on what stage it is, whether it's city, county, whatever. And then finding those opportunities that are right for you, bidding on them or receiving quotes and bidding, and keep trying. I mean, a lot of the questions we get is, okay, I'm in government contracting. How long will it take before I win my first contract? And, you know, of course, the answer is we can't be sure. Everybody's different. However, there's a, you know, there are examples of small businesses that win a contract on their first go round with a bid. There are, but that's not the norm. The norm is it could take up to a year to have any success winning anything. And so anywhere in between there, it's completely based on how much marketing you're doing. What's your business like? Do you already have past performance or do you have zero past performance? What does your capability statement look like, and how are you presenting yourself to the government? Do you have a professional website? Do you even, is your email, are you using a Yahoo or a Gmail or a Hotmail versus tburns@namethatbusiness.com? You know, are you setting up yourself for success initially? All of those things matter in terms of how quickly you see success in government contracting. Next slide. And it's not just me. So this is the entire team. We all have years of experience, either directly in the government market space or in the private sector going after contracts. And we're all here to work with you and to help you. I never say I know everything, and I rely on my team. If I'm lacking in one area, they can help me, and vice versa. Next slide.
And I can go ahead and
I'll let Amanda take over. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much, Thomas. And yeah, our team is fantastic. I think we have combination, something over 300 years worth of experience between all of the procurement specialists. So quite a plethora of knowledge on our team. And I did want to, before I let you guys go for the day, I wanted to make you aware of some of our other upcoming events that you may be interested in. We have a contracting with California state government, and that's going to be in person. So if you're local to Humboldt County, maybe you want to do a day trip from the Bay Area, you are welcome to join us on June 22nd. I believe Thomas will be up here with us for that one.
Driving all the way to Eureka. Yeah. I live in San Francisco, by the way. So most of us are all virtual. So yeah.
Yeah, it's quite a drive, but worth it if you want to join us for this informative workshop. And then we have a couple other webinars coming up at the end of the month. One really exciting panel of federal small business professionals. So if you're looking to get into the federal contracting space, I'd highly recommend signing up for that one on June 29th. That one is completely virtual, so you can attend from anywhere, and we'll have a bunch of Northern California federal professionals there to answer your questions. And then another really exciting one we have coming up in early June is with DefenseWorks Innovation Hubs, which specifically help businesses that may have an innovative idea or may need a little bit of funding to get their innovative idea off the ground. And that's super interesting and super exciting. We'll be meeting with them on July 12th, and that is also a virtual event. And then when you do get these slides, you can check out all of our other training events here at the link on the bottom of the screen. And with that, we don't have any additional questions. So I'll go ahead and thank you all for joining us today. I'm so glad you guys could be here, especially on the early mornings. When you exit out of this webinar, you will be redirected to our feedback survey. Your feedback on our resources and trainings are absolutely invaluable to us because we really do put these trainings on to benefit you. And if you have any ideas for maybe a training you want to see or how we could do it better, please fill out the survey. We do read all of the responses. We always love to hear your feedback. And with that, I hope you all have a fantastic Thursday afternoon and an even better weekend as we are looking towards that.
Oh, yeah.
The weekend's coming up.
The weekend is coming up. Looking forward to it.
All right. Have
Thank
a good
you for
day,
joining.
folks.
Have a good day.